What's up people, it's Wasabi and I'm back with another review. And today we're going to talk about two mice from Ninjutso, the 10 and the 10 Air. Today's products were sent over to me to check out, but as always the content on my channel. These are my thoughts, personal opinions and experiences with the products. Before we get on with the review, here's a quick look at the packaging because that's what you pay for too. Ninjutso keeps the packaging simple and clean and I really appreciate the refreshing no fuss design. Slide out the box and you're greeted with the mouse and the 8K dongle. Underneath it's where you get the essentials, the stiff paracord style USB-C cable, a set of brand stickers, these do look very nice, and in this envelope is where you can find the stock skates. You get both full-sized and large dots, and that's pretty much all that's included inside the box. Now before we go any further, let's manage some expectations here real quick. The Sora V2, which is a mouse they released some time ago, was a big hit, and that is a mouse that really put Ninjutso on the map. They could have dropped the V3 and watched it sell like hotcakes, but instead they are trying a new shape. And with this shape, they are taking everything they learned from the Sora and trying a few really interesting things with it. For this release, you have two options, the 53g 10 and the 45g 10 Air. And yes, the naming is a little rough, but stick with me. Here's the kicker, it's $89.99 for the 10 and $99.99 for the 10 Air. This is a genuine budget challenger to the GPX Superlight 2 and the Viper V3 Pro. So being priced under $100 with the features that it has, which you will see in a bit, there is a lot of room to impress. The Ninjutso 10 design is minimalist and purpose-built. Both the 10 and the 10 Air are virtually identical from the outside, and they both have a completely clean and solid shell design with zero holes or perforations. All the weight saving happens on the inside, so you got that premium uninterrupted look on both models. Beyond that, it has the 10 icon on the left side and the Ninjutso logo on the back, and both are in a subtle gloss black print. Now for the build quality, especially on the lightweight solid shell mouse. The main buttons are not the tightest, you can feel a bit of side movement before and after the click. Honestly, in the flagship level mouse today, that side wobble is becoming a thing of the past, so this is definitely an area for improvement. The scroll wheel itself is secure, but the scroll click has a noticeable metallic springy sound that is a little odd. You'll hear it later in the sound test. It's not a deal breaker for this price, but it is there. The side buttons are perfectly fitted with zero wobble. The 53g 10 feels fantastic. The shell is completely rigid with zero flexing or creaking. I can squeeze the mouse hard and it won't give. The 45g 10 Air though, I've seen reports of the hump cracking when people try to force flex it. So if you're heavy-handed or you frequently squeeze the mouse, the 53g 10 is likely the safer bet to avoid that risk. Both mice feature a fine matte coating with a slightly chalky texture. It feels great, provides excellent grip for my dry hands, and yes, it will show sweat marks like any black mouse. They claim that it's an improvement over the Sora V2's coating, and to be honest, it feels very similar to the Sora V2. I would say the coating is improved in a way that it should last longer and resist shine better over time, so far so good. Now this is a weight test without the skates on. Stated weight for the 10 is 53 grams and the 10 Air is at 45 grams. For my copy, the 10 comes in at 53.5 grams and the 10 Air weighs in at 44.4 grams. For me, the 53g version is closer to my sweet spot because I found myself struggling a little in tactical shooters like Valorant with the ultralight 45g Air. Now this is a personal preference, there is no best weight, so choose the weight that's closest to what you've been maining. If you're coming from an 80g mouse or 60g mouse, start with the 53g 10. That way it's a lot easier for you to adjust to and enjoy the benefits of a lightweight mouse. Now if you're not sure which mouse weight would be the best for you, I have a little video on that topic. Feel free to check it out. I will leave a link to it in the description below if I don't forget. So anyway, before I get into more detail with the shape and how it feels from my experience, to put things into perspective, my hand size is 17.5 by 9. Alright, let's talk about the shape, and the best way to do that is to use a Superlight 2 as a reference point. Because the shape of the Ninjutso 10 is clearly going up against it, and this shape is probably the most iconic and widely used shape to exist today. The Ninjutso 10 is a medium-sized mouse, putting it in the same size bracket as the GPX GPX, the Viper V3 Pro, and I'd say the Maya X as well. So if you find that the GPX Superlight is just fitting, the 10 will fit you pretty well. Also, if you find the Razer Viper V3 Pro to be a little too wide and broad, the Ninjutso 10 should feel much better in the hand, or at least it does for me. The crucial differences are not in the size, but in the subtle ways the shape is sculpted to offer a different kind of feel and control. As you can see, the mouse button height is very regular for a symmetrical mouse like this. It does sit a little lower than the GPX Superlight 2 though, and this one has long comfort grooves across the main buttons, so this will help you to center your fingers, but it is very subtle. The side walls are very flat here, and I can extend my ring and pinky fingers out very comfortably. It feels very free and easy for you to position your fingers, and really this is the best trait about this shape because it makes it feel so universal. Now I can't really say that there are inward grooves down the middle because it is very flat on both sides, but the sides do angle down a little bit, so you got a bit of an angle to help with lifting. And as you can see, the shape opens up towards the back. It's not a super wide angle, but it's just enough to support the wraparound of my thumb and guide it to just under the side buttons. For the hump, this is the single biggest difference you will feel between the 10 and a GPX. The GPX has that very neutral central peaking top profile that extends to the back, and from the peak of the hump to the back, it feels like it's snuggling into your palm. Then for the Ninjutso 10, it is quite similar, but the hump curves down to the base much sooner than the GPX, which means that the back of the mouse here feels less intrusive, as well as coming off feeling a little wider in the back of your palm, but it's not excessively wide, and I think quite many people would find this to be more comfortable for long hours. So overall, if I were to describe the shape of this mouse as simply as possible, imagine the GPX as an inflated balloon. This Ninjutso is that, but with a bit of air released. Or another way to describe it is that the Ninjutso 10 is a shape between the GPX Superlight and the Viper V3 Pro. You know, without the silly front flares, and it doesn't feel too broad towards the back either. It is a very good alternative to the GPX shape, especially if you wish the top of the GPX didn't feel like it was trying to stick itself into the crevice of your palm. You know, maybe you want that feeling of having space to breathe. The shape of the Ninjutso 10 is not as supportive as the GPX for the palm grip style though. So the shape, although similar, it does feel better for the claw grip. That would be pretty much how I would differentiate the 10 and the GPX, because in my hand, one feels better for the regular claw and the aggressive claw, while the other is better for the relaxed claw and the palm grip style. And now here's a closer look to help you visualize the different grip styles on the Ninjutso 10 with reference to my hand size. For the palm grip style, while the 10 is large enough for the palm grip for medium-sized hands, the front portion of the mouse lacks an angle to allow your hand to naturally conform to the shape. So when I try to do a full contact palm grip, there is quite a bit of a gap between my fingers and the length of the mouse buttons. When I try to force my hand down, it's a little awkward, like I would not feel comfortable holding down this position for too long. Now moving on, all variations of the claw grip style, the relaxed claw, the regular claw, and the aggressive claw. Claw grip style in general is when the shape feels the best to me, and it does feel like it has an edge over the classic GPX shape when it comes to this style. Like I said earlier, it is overall a flatter top with a mid hump that doesn't peak up as much. So it does spread out your palm just enough to feel stable doing the claw grip, and for this shape and size, it also feels very stable doing a forward-leaning grip style as well. For the fingertip grip style, it would work fine as long as you have the finger length to maneuver the mouse. But keep in mind that this has a similar form factor to the GPX, the Viper V3 Pro, and the XEV2. It is just a little smaller than those, so if you can do a fingertip grip on any of those mice, I think you'd have no trouble doing it here on this one. And for my hand size, it doesn't feel so good to do the fingertip grip style because the back end of the mouse does get in the way of my lower palm. But this mouse uses the new Ninjutso HyperSwitch mechanical switches. It's a medium to heavy click with a guaranteed double click free design, though we'll have to wait and see about that. They use a button tensioning system, or BTS as they described, and that is supposed to eliminate pre-travel by constantly pressing the button plate against the switch plunger. In practice, it works okay. The clicks feel refined and relaxed and really not as harsh or snappy as what you would think it would be. Something I noticed about this button tensioning system on such a lightweight mouse is that that you can feel a slight springy vibration on both the click and when you set the mouse down. It's not enough to throw off your aim, but it's something that you might notice. The side buttons are well positioned, they are easy to reach, and have a nice tactile click. They do have a short travel and feel responsive, and I'm getting no mushiness or side-to-side wobble at all. There is nothing special to highlight about them though, but at the same time, I really do not have any complaints about it. Overall, these feel okay to me. The Hyper Scroll Wheel, which is what they call it, is designed for long-term consistency. The steps are defined, the tracks are grippy, and it feels tight. My only real issue is the scroll click. It is way harder to press than other mice that I use. It's noticeably stiffer than its main competitors, and I often found myself accidentally scrolling while trying to click the middle button. So for a gaming bind, this is definitely a setback. Now here's a quick sound test to give you a better idea of how this mouse sounds. The stock skates are one of the most interesting parts of this mouse. Ninjutso calls them hyper skates, a new patented material composition. On the control pad, they feel fast with no pressure applied, but they become super grabby and dry when you press down. What would bother most people is that the jump in the drag feeling is significant. You know, while I support brands innovating, especially for skates, which is very interesting, I think these skates just won't be for everyone. These feel durable as hell, but for quick, fluid movements in games like the finals, I felt like I really needed a more fluid, consistent glide from the skates. I rarely say this, but I would highly recommend to try third-party PTFE skates on this mouse. It can be dot skates or full-size ones, whichever you prefer. And something which I think is super stupid, the stock skates, when you put them on, they stick to the mouse like super glue. It is freaking difficult to remove them. I could not remove the skates with my nail because my nail started to split when I tried. That is how tough it is. So I had to use the edge of a flathead screwdriver, and of course I ended up damaging the base of my mouse. So this is something for you good people to take note of before you buy, and of course for Ninjutso to learn from. I mean, as a brand, you gotta make sure you check and test everything a user would do before launching the product. Because these stock skates are almost impossible to remove, and you know, kids at home, if they can't find a flathead screwdriver, they might just grab a knife from the kitchen to try and pry off the skates, and we all know how bad things can go from there. I don't have kids, but this is a gaming audience, you know, you gotta consider everyone. This is not just for Ninjutso. I hope all brands will test everything and think about people who would use the product. Inside, we have Ninjutso's very own Aim Ninja sensor. Now, under the hood, this is a specially tuned PixArt Por 3950 that is reworked by PixArt just for Ninjutso. It's like same but different. The key here is that it's been optimized for 20% less power consumption compared to the standard Por 3950, but more importantly, performance-wise, it's been working just fine. Connectivity-wise, the 10 comes with the 8K polling rate dongle out of the box, and of course, you can use this wired if you choose to do so. Here's where the custom sensor pays off, because at a standard 1000Hz polling rate, the 10 model gets a staggering 140 hours of battery life. And for the 10 Air, which has a lighter battery to keep the weight down, it's still got a respectable 95 hours. The difference is the main trade-off. The 10 Air sacrifices battery capacity to reach that 45 gram weight. That, and of course, a bit of the structure. The RGB dongle is very cool. Visually, this thing is incredible. It looks like a glowing pill, and the lighting is really nice. It is extremely light though, but for a simple device, I think it gets the job done. And you can customize the colors and the effects, and you can even turn it off through the software as well. For both versions of the 10 model, the software is the same. You can choose to download it onto your computer or just use the web-based version. version. It's a nice and simple interface. You can remap your keys here. You can set up to 3 mouse profiles for this one. And in the performance page, here is where you can customize your DPI settings. System mode here, you can either choose competitive or high speed, which is the standard. Competitive mode is supposed to improve scanning rate and wireless signal strength, but at the expense of high power consumption. I have no problem with either mode, so I just left mine on the highest setting. Hyperclick, for this one, it affects the click latency, and I would suggest to keep this setting on. With this setting, the click registers as soon as the switch spring leaves its dormant state instead of waiting for it to contact the bottom. It is very much like the switches that Endgame Gear uses. The difference is in the milliseconds. My recommendation is that if you are going for a gaming mouse, just enable all the high performance setting at the start and see how it feels for you and tweak if you feel there is a need to. Then you got the rest of the regular settings, the polling rate, angle tuning, slam click prevention, lift off distance. It is very nice to see all these options at a glance. The next page is where you can customize the lighting effect and the colors of the 8K dongle. You can also turn it off if you wish to do so. And finally, you got the macro page to set up the macros if you need to. So something to note, when I first got this mouse, I couldn't get it connected to the web driver because my receiver and mouse needed to be updated first. So what I had to do was download the desktop version of the software, then do the update for the receiver and the mouse through that. Once that was done, I uninstalled the app and used the web driver from there. Now, there are many things to like about a mouse, and it varies from person to person, and you know, these days a lot of mice are very good. So some of my favorite things about this mouse, first is the presentation. For the price, the packaging and the unboxing presentation is fantastic. It does feel like I'm getting a premium product, and it's got that refreshing vibe to it that I don't get from other mainstream brands. Next is the RGB dongle, and visually this dongle is sensational. The lighting is vibrant and smooth, and honestly, it looks like something you'll find in an Apple store. I know RGB isn't a priority for a gaming mouse, but this one is so cool. It doesn't look cheesy, and the only problem I can think of from a design perspective is that it almost steals away too much of the attention from the mouse. The next thing is the weight options, and I really appreciate that this mouse offers 2 weights of the same mouse. Usually most brands would offer 2 different sizes, which is very good, but maybe some people prefer the standard size for the support and stability from a regular form factor, but you don't want it to have the weight of a small mouse. Next is the shape, and this is the strongest thing about this mouse. It takes the formula of the GPX and they tweaked it a little here and there, which makes it feel more beneficial for variations of the claw grip style. I would say that this one is safer than the GPX, the Viper V3 Pro, and the XEV2, and I feel like quite many people can pick this one up and adjust to it very quickly and play relatively well. When I first used this mouse and played a couple of games of Overwatch and Valorant, this shape stood out to me the most in tactical FPS. I was shooting much better than usual, and I can say this because I usually play very average. I'm very aware of my skill level, and you know, playing in Apex servers, everyone shoots like Jing or Forsaken from Paper X for some reason. So yeah, using this mouse, I was shooting with confidence much earlier than using other mice. That is just one of the things that stood out to me when I was using this mouse. Beyond these things, everything is generally good, but not outstanding. To me, nothing about this product is particularly outstanding, but nothing really breaks it. I mean, aside from the skates that I think needs to be worked on, the other thing I would change is the scroll click. But this is more of a me thing because I use the scroll click a lot for gaming, and I do find this one very hard to press. So this is something that will make me choose other mice over this one, so yada. Recommendation time. Between the 10 and the 10 Air, both are excellent solid shell mice under $100. If you want the absolute lightest experience and you feel that 95 hours of battery life is plenty enough for you, honestly, I'd say it's already a lot. Go ahead and grab the 45-gram 10 Air, but just remember to not press it too hard on the back. And if you prefer a little more weight for stability, especially in tactical shooters like Valorant, the 53-gram 10 with 140 hours of battery life is just a wonderful option, and it is $10 cheaper too. Now, final thoughts and what do I think of its value? If you ask me, the Ninjutso 10 is like using my GPX GPX Superlight 2 with a flatter, slightly less intrusive feel that many people will appreciate. It doesn't feel like a $170 flagship mouse, but that's fair because it's not. At $89.99 and $99.99, the value proposition is incredible. Do you need to buy one if you already own a GPX, Viper V3 Pro, or an XEV2? I'd say probably not. Of course, unless there is something about those shapes that are really bothering you. Maybe you find those other mice too wide or uncomfortable for you, but you enjoy the flexibility of a universal shape and want to stick to this shape category, then I'd say go ahead and check out the Ninjutso 10. If you are on a budget and looking for a brand new universal shape 8K ready mouse, the 10 and the 10 Air are, in my opinion, mice that are super easy to recommend. Of course, there are tons of Chinese budget GPX clones, which I am sure they offer great value for money as well, but none of them stand out as interesting to me as Ninjutso as a brand, and you know the mice that they have. Now, I cannot comment on how much better the QC and customer service will be after what happened to the Sora V2, but I do hope that they improve because they got some pretty good stuff going on, and I think quite many people are looking forward to what they have to show, like the Sora V3. So whatever issues they had before, I hope they worked it out. You know, whatever it is, you gotta keep improving. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful in any way, please leave a like and subscribe to support my channel, and I guess I'll see you in the next one.